Good morning and welcome to the Sunday morning service from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. My name is Pamela Flodman and I will be serving as your worship associate for today. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. The chalice is the only symbol that we have of our faith. Our chalice will be lit this morning by Rachel Daniels. Rachel is a member of our worship committee and is the guiding force behind our Social Justice Sundays, which we typically hold on the fourth Sunday of each month, as we are doing today. Our congregation is committed to our work in support of social and environmental justice, especially finding ways in which our actions can make a real difference. And I always appreciate the effort which Rachel puts into organizing meaningful worship services, and especially her focus on making sure we include a call to action so that we can make a difference in our community. So thank you, Rachel, for lighting our chalice this morning. You are muted, Rachel. Rachel, you're still muted. Rachel, I think you're still muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I unmuted myself and then maybe I somehow clicked twice. Sorry about that. But we mentioned maybe saying a few words as we, have a chalice lighter. And so I wanted to say that in addition to my babysitting our one-year-old twins, I do that on Mondays, and we have an almost 3-year-old and a 7-week-old baby, and I babysit that on Tuesdays, making trips up to the mountains. But it's really the UUFLB that's kept me somewhat centered during these COVID times. And the programs that we're having, the social justice film series, Zoom at noon, the in-depth discussions, all these things, in addition to the words of spiritual comfort from our minister, worship associates, and everybody that comes to the discussions and programs like today. I feel each and every Sunday, Wednesday, Fridays, it just helps me raise my awareness and helps me just be a little bit of a better person. So I thank you, and I'm grateful to be here.
Well, thank you, Rachel. We light the chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky above and below, for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery. So again, welcome to all who have joined us this morning at UUFLB for worship. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your reason is to have come to worship today, it is the right reason to be here. Our fellowship is served by our minister, Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, who leads our service at UUFLB once a month and is together with us on other Sundays to join in worship and in the many other events, meetings, and discussions which occur throughout the week. So this morning, I would like to invite Don West Jr. to make an announcement about the Wednesday night movie series coming up this week. Don?
Hi, everybody. Well, I guess I got to put myself on the screen. Hi, everybody. This Wednesday, our movie series is something I'm very excited about. If you don't know, which I'm sure you all do, every Wednesday this will be our 8th week. It's a social justice with a race focus right now movie series. And this week we're going to be watching a piece from featuring Angela Davis and the activist Jane Elliott in a conversation on racism in America. So that should be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. So I invite you all Wednesday at 6:30. There's a link. And if you haven't been able to join us, there's a do-it-yourself syllabus on our website. And I'll put the link in our chat if anybody wants to see the syllabus. And hopefully you guys will join us on Wednesday. Thanks, Pam.
Well, thank you, Don. Today for our service, we are joined by Michael Doshi, the Director of Partnerships with Algalita, a marine research and education foundation, which is based in Long Beach. Plastic pollution is inextricably connected to social and environmental justice issues throughout the world, and Algalita has a long history in the work of identifying and combating plastic pollution. When I was exploring the Algalita website this week, I was particularly struck by one of the quotes on the website, which said, "First, we change our relationship with plastic, then we change the world." I know that many of us are thoughtful in reducing the plastic that we consume and careful in handling plastic waste through recycling programs, but the challenge is so much bigger. Today, Doshi will be giving us an overview of the global plastic pollution crisis, as well as, very importantly, some ways that we within our community can participate and effect solutions. We each have ability to make a difference. So in that vein, please join me now in reading our centering thought, and we'll have the words on the screen. We gather as many drops. We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. When we pool together as a single body, flowing together, we become a stream, at times a raging river, or with our shared force, we can carve new paths, alter landscapes, and create oceans of meaning and waves of change. Now, as we gather today from our homes for worship, let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read the words of our unison affirmation together when and if it feels right for you. Dawn has allowed you to unmute your microphones so that we can join our voices together in our unison affirmation. The words will be on your screens. And while we're joining our voices together by Zoom, while we realize that we won't sound coordinated in the same way that we do when we're together, I still really believe that by reading the unison affirmation together and by hearing each other's voices, we can truly come together to do the work that we've come here to do. So please join me in reading the unison affirmation. May we be
reminded here
of
our highest
aspirations
and inspired to bring
our gifts
of
love and service
to the altar
to
of
the
altar of
humanity.
humanity.
May
May
we
we
know
know
Once again
that we
are
are
not
not
isolated beings,
but
connected
connected
in
in mystery
and
and
miracle to the
the
universe
universe, this
and to the
community,
community
and
and
to
to
each
each
other.
other.
So now I invite you all to enjoy our opening hymn. And this is a favorite hymn for many of us at UUFLB, Blue Boat Home. It's number 1064 in the teal hymnal. I think Dawn will now have us muted, except that Carole will be playing the music and singing for us Blue Boat Home from her home. And although we're now all muted, I invite you, I think most of us know this hymn, join along together with Carole, although you're muted from home, in our opening hymn, Blue Boat Home.
as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Every infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbored one port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my
Thank you, Carole. Our opening words this morning are written by Susan McGinn, a Unitarian Universalist minister serving the Navy Chaplain Corps. These words remind us of our commitment to our seventh principle. As a UU congregation, we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. We light a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world, not of wealth, but of well-being, a world of new peace and abundance for all. As we give thanks for this earth, our shared and singular home, may we dedicate ourselves to its ongoing care, rising to the calls deep within us and all around us. May we respond today and always with courage and with love. Now I would like to introduce to you our speaker for today, Michael Doshi. Doshi is Algalita's Director of Partnerships, as I said earlier, spearheading strategic partnership collaborations and engaging like-minded organizations, working on innovative solutions to participate in educating youth and others through Algalita's leadership programs. Doshi travels the world conducting waste investigations to experience and learn where our plastic ends up in the environment and how it impacts humans. So today, Doshi will be giving us an introduction to the important work that he is doing together with Algalita, and also a call to action to what we can do as individuals and as a congregation to make a difference. Because Doshi may not be able to stay for our virtual cafe following the service, he has agreed to answer a few questions immediately following his presentation. So again, I'd like you all to join me in welcoming Michael Doshi to our fellowship today. Thank you, Doshi.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you to Dawn and to Rachel for doing our dry run the other day and being so welcoming. And it's amazing to be here on a Sunday with such a positive group of people. So it's a great way to start my Sunday for sure. And so I've been asked to come and talk about plastic pollution, not just from an environmental perspective, but from a social justice perspective as well, and how it affects people. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Algalita, our full title is Algalita Marine Research and Education. And we're best known in the plastic space for discovering the accumulation of plastic in the ocean between here and Hawaii, which you might have heard on the news as Trash Island or the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. In reality, what it's called, the scientific term, is an oceanic gyre, which is a convergent zone of our surface level ocean currents that is accumulating and collecting our plastic that's entering the ocean. So Algalita's been in the plastics movement for over 20 years now. Our founder, Captain Charles Moore, is the boat captain that discovered that accumulation of plastic. And we're based out of Long Beach, California, just in Alamitos Bay landing area. So Don showed this image a little earlier, and this is our research vessel, the boat that discovered the accumulation of plastic in these oceanic gyres. It's the vessel's name is Algalita. I actually took this photo while in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean in between Easter Island and Chile. This is in the South Pacific Gyre. So you don't actually see with your naked eye plastic here, but what you're actually seeing around me are tiny little pieces of plastic that I'm holding in my hand here. These are known as microplastics. And you can see they're different colors. You can see that there's some that are fibrous looking, and those fibers are mainly coming from things such as discarded fishing nets or textiles. And plastic doesn't biodegrade, it photodegrades. So since plastic is made from fossil fuels and synthetic materials, the breakdown isn't an organic process like biodegradation or composting through microbes and other bacteria. There's actually 5 of these gyres around the world: the North Pacific, the South Pacific, the North Atlantic, the South Atlantic, and the Indian Ocean. So we started out as this plastics organization researching plastics in the ocean, but as we got exposed to more of the solutions and going back to these gyres after 20 years and getting exposed to what more of the solutions to stop plastic from entering the ocean are, we got exposed to more of the issues, to where plastic begins from. And to understand that, we need to look farther upstream. So we started leveraging our lens as an ocean organization to deliver an education to people and to youth about the upstream issues with plastic pollution. So where is your community? I'm going to describe this map briefly for you. On the far left-hand side there, we see fossil fuel extraction, which is anything from fracking, or you see an animation there of a pump jack, which we see a lot of in southern LA County. And we even have a lot of oil extraction in the Long Beach area. That then goes to petrochemical facilities, which we see a lot of in the Long Beach area and the Wilmington area and District 15 of LA County. That plastic then gets produced into the goods we use. It gets shipped to places like Ralph's, Costco, Walmart, Target, whatever retailer we might purchase items from. We then take it home, and then when we're done using it, it gets disposed of. Here in Southern California, it's actually really interesting because that downstream lens I was talking about, we see that in the ocean, but then if you look just slightly upstream, sometimes even less than 2 miles upstream, we're gonna find extraction, production, where we consume it, and then also we have incineration in Long Beach. We don't actually have a landfill or a dump in Long Beach. We incinerate everything that's coming from our trash bins that are collected from the city. So with y'all being in Orange County, I like to plant the message in people's mind of think about what's the plastic pollution footprint in your community. Do you have production? Do you have extraction? What's your landfill look like? Something that Pamela said, the quote she took from our website in regards to understanding, changing our relationship with plastics. Now, we've always viewed these plastics as just a container that allows us to consume the things we need. Shampoo, conditioner, our food, it keeps things fresh, it keeps people safe, it keeps things safe. But we just view it as a container, as a packaging. Plastic is a synthetic material. So when we talk about changing our relationship with plastic, we're really talking about changing our relationship and our understanding of plastic being a material that is made by humans in a lab and through a very, very toxic process. So along this whole plastics value chain here, people are getting harmed at every stage of the process, from the extraction to that pipeline transfer that you see up in the left-hand corner of the screen. We have a lot of pipelines that are trying to be built right now in the West Virginia area of the US and the Ohio River Valley, to the petrochemical facilities where you'll see this in LA County with communities that have those pump jacks extracting fossil fuels literally in their backyard. These are releasing toxic chemicals with the points of extraction and with the petrochemical refineries as well and production facilities. This isn't just happening in California. This is happening in one of the massive, the largest petrochemical facility complexes in the world, which is in Houston, Texas area. Now, these very frontline points of extraction, points of production, they tend to happen in communities that are majority BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And disproportionately, these people are being affected by the pollution coming out of these facilities. We look in Houston, Texas, in a 2-mile radius, there's a very high rate of leukemia in young children. Chemicals such as butadiene, 1,3, benzene are being released from these, and the EPA watch list on these chemicals is constantly shrinking because they're deregulating, checking these chemicals. They're not monitoring for them. So what's happening, especially now during COVID-19, is the regulation and the monitoring of these, the leaking of these chemicals, these toxic chemicals from these facilities, is actually being monitored even less now. One of my very good friends, Yvette Ariano, who works for Texas Environmental Justice Advocacy Services, who services frontline and fence line communities around this petrochemical complex in Houston, both her parents have COVID-19. One of her coworkers has COVID-19. And these people these community members that are living closer to these facilities, they're more susceptible to getting COVID-19 because of the levels of pollution they're already dealing with, and their immune system's already being more susceptible to getting sick. So I'm showing you this because this is, again, I want you to understand that plastic isn't just polluting the environment, it's polluting humans at every stage of its existence. As we see in the top right corner, that's by an incineration unit where it's hard for them to breathe. When plastic is burned, it's releasing toxic dioxins into the air and particulate matter. That's not just polluting the soil, the air, the waterways, but also people. As we see in the bottom right hand of the screen there, that is a waste picker community in Southeast Asia that's actually having to pick through our scrap plastic from America, and I'll dip into that in just a minute, to make their livelihood. So going back a little bit to this being an ocean issue, I actually went out to some of the remote coastlines on the island of Molokai in Hawaii a few years back with Kahi Picaro here, who is the founder of Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii, a nonprofit dedicated to solving plastic pollution on the Hawaiian Islands. What I'm doing here is I'm standing in a pit of microplastics that's about 15 feet long and about 4 feet deep. And this is on the windward side of the Hawaiian Islands, of Molokai. So in the gyre, North Pacific Gyre, all that plastic pollution that's broken up into, that's photodegraded into these tiny microplastic pieces, this is a snapshot of the amount of plastic that's actually out there in the ocean. Now, people always want to know, like, how much plastic is in the ocean? Can we clean this up? We need to quantify it to be able to solve this issue. Well, a few years back, Algalita participated in a research study that gave the first global estimates in the amount of plastic in the ocean. And that was estimating around 8 million tons of plastic enter the ocean every single year, estimating about 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic floating on the ocean surface. Now, in the past 2 years, another recent paper has come out from Five Gyres Institute studying microfiber and microplastic release just in the San Francisco Bay alone. And they found that every year in the San Francisco Bay area, over 7 trillion pieces of micro and nanoplastics are released into the San Francisco Bay alone. So to actually quantify this is a very hard thing to do. Plastic isn't just coming from our single-use consumer goods, it's coming from fishing industry gear, which is mainly what we're standing in here. This is all from the commercial fishing industry. It's also shedding from our polyester clothing, from our carpeting, from our tires. That was the #1 source of plastic pollution they found in the San Francisco Bay Area, was tire dust. Whenever we drive our cars, that synthetic rubber, it's a polymer. Plastic is a polymer. It sheds little microfibers, and that gets washed into the bay, into the ocean every time it rains. So plastic pollution is really ingrained with our everyday life. Going back to what I was talking about with the export of plastic pollution in our single-use goods, I took this photo while in East Java, Indonesia, just outside of Surabaya. As soon as I got off the plane, I was being shown around by some local activists in an activist group, and they took us to this open dump site. And all these people here, these are waste pickers. These people pick through plastic scraps to try to find plastics of value to sell into the informal recycling economy. Now, if you look close enough if you look at the young girl there in the yellow, down to the right, you might notice where that plastic bag is from. That's a Cheesecake Factory plastic bag. That's from the US. In this pile of trash, I found M&M's packaging. I found Late July tortilla chip packaging. I found Blue Diamond almond packaging, M&M's packaging, all from America. So just because you put something in a recycling bin doesn't mean it's actually getting recycled. This all started in American and European and Australian recycling bins, and then was exported because there isn't actually a market for these low quality plastics to actually be recycled. Now, again, going back to the social justice, the environmental justice issue, with what you all were talking about, and what this group is really focused on, is the interconnectedness of everything. Is globally, plastic is the lubricant for globalization. And the pollution that is associated and connected with plastics has us connected on a global web of pollution. So just because we consume something here doesn't mean that it's not harming somebody on another part of the world. So this is just a short video I wanted to show you of the surrounding area. All these mounds you're seeing in East Java here, these are all plastic scraps. And they were looking at somewhere around 8 tons of plastic a day could be dumped in this area. And some of these mounds are over 10 feet tall, over 20 feet wide. I never knew anything like this existed. What they don't pick through, or when they're done picking through, what they don't sell into the informal economy, they'll actually throw a match to it and burn it. This is in front of people's homes, so the whole family can pick through it. An average waste picker is making about $1.50 to $2 a day digging through our plastic scraps. We actually rolled up on this dump truck here, that's dumping a fresh load of plastic imports onto a woman's front yard. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but it's right next to a mosque, which I thought was a very, very trippy contrast to have. I just show you that to really show you some quantities that we're looking at for the amount of plastic we're consuming and discarding as waste. Now, with plastic pollution, we really have a tendency to put the blame on each other of don't use that single-use straw, don't use that single-use water bottle, don't use plastic bags, don't use utensils. We tend to blame each other for it, which is sure, we need to cut back on the amount of stuff we're using, but the blame really is placed on these multinational corporations. Here I'm just showing you kind of a web of all the different brands we have available on our grocery store, just a snapshot of brands we have available at the grocery store here in America. And through marketing, through advertising, we've been systematically trained to willingly participate in these systems of creating pollution. Now, we've been told don't be litter bugs, reduce, reuse, recycle, and that's how we're going to solve this. What we're trying to do is change the narrative to really show that this is a massive corporate issue that is beyond the sole consumer to solve on their own. We need to start thinking about this, not just what can I do, but what can we do collective as a society to help solve these issues, because it goes far beyond just cutting back on straws and water bottles and plastic bags. So as I mentioned, Algalita really focuses on educating people, specifically youth. We really target ages 11 to 18, and we do work with a lot of university students as well. This photo was taken with about 120 students that attended our 10th International Youth Summit on Plastic Pollution, which just happened February in Dana Point at the Ocean Institute. And I'm so glad we hosted it when we did, because right after this is when really everything started to go crazy with the pandemic and global lockdown started to happen. But you'll see that banner in the background, "Don't dump here, environmental justice now." We actually made that for a student that was attending from East Java, Indonesia, for her to take back to her community, for her and her fellow students to use during local actions to try to hold corporations accountable. In this photo are 120 students from over 10 different countries around the world, all working on individual projects to try to solve plastic pollution in their local area. And that's what we do at Algalita. We don't just try to educate about the issues, but we try to empower students further to have the knowledge to continue working on their projects and build their global network to really make movements in solving this issue. So, big picture solutions. Currently, we're in what I like to call a linear model of consumption, where they make it, we consume it, we throw it away. What we're looking to move to is more of a circular economy, where things are produced from renewable inputs, not fossil fuels that are unsustainable. And then they're going through a whole process of us being able to reuse them, repair them. Think about the amount of items you've owned that break down after a certain amount of time and you can't repair them, and it's cheaper to buy something new. This is a whole business model that's designed around planned obsolescence. So if we're making things out of more of a quality product, we can repair them versus having to have new things produced. You'll see up there an arrow focused on effective recycling. That's actually turning something back into the same product it was made from. Most plastic is downcycled, meaning that it won't be the same item it was again. Less than 9% of all of our plastic around the globe has less than 9% of anything you've ever put into a recycling bin around the world has actually been recycled. So what we're trying to do with the zero waste model is create systems that are more localized and really creating it where we're not referring to things as waste. We're referring to things as resources, and we can put it back into a system that can be sustainable for future generations. So what can we do to take action? First and foremost, I would like to suggest you all host a free virtual community screening of the new full-length documentary, The Story of Plastic. I already shared the link with Dawn, but you can visit storyofplastic.org to learn how to host a screening, or actually there's a lot of free community screenings right now. There's a full list on there if you want to join any. Some of them have associated panel discussions with people from the film, but The Story of Plastic is the most comprehensive plastic pollution documentary to date, really highlighting the full global issue and lifting the corporations, the multinational corporations' veil to show where plastic pollution is really starting and how we can put an end to it. Algalita has some free viewing guides to help lead the discussion after the film, if that's something you're all interested in participating in. There's a few pieces of legislation that are out right now, both on a federal level and on a state level. I highly suggest you contact your members of Congress to co-sponsor the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act of 2020. As I'm describing this major global issue to you, you got to start to think about, sure, if we stop using straws, if we stop using water bottles and other single-use goods, that's amazing. But that's really just a drop in the bucket when we're looking at over 7 billion people on this planet. So to really hold corporations accountable for being a major part of the solution and creating new reusable systems, creating products that are made out of materials that can actually be effectively recycled, it's going to take policy to hold them accountable. So in February, we introduced the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act of 2020. I was actually in DC speaking on Capitol Hill during the introduction of this bill. I emailed this link to Don as well, but it's an easy call to action link that will give you more of a description on the bill, and then it will automatically link you up with your Congress representatives in DC. You can call and leave a voicemail, or you can send an automatic email asking them to co-sponsor this bill. In the state of California, we actually have the California Circular Economy and Plastic Pollution Reduction Acts that are on the floor right now. So you can email your state representatives to ask them to sign on to this bill. The bills are identical, but from a strategic standpoint, they introduced the bill on both the Senate and the Assembly to try to get it passed through. So this would be basically taking what we're trying to shoot for on a national scale, but implementing it in the state of California. And when I'm talking about a circular economy, what it's doing is requiring that these corporations and product producers will have a certain amount of recycled content in their plastic they're producing. So it's not just virgin plastic, brand new plastic. It would require that the plastics that are sold in California are actually made from a quality enough material to be recycled. Recycling wasn't invented to save the planet. Recycling is a resource recovery economy. It's all business. And currently it costs more money to recycle plastics as is than it is to extract fossil fuels and make brand new plastics. This will also help to end this Circular Economy Act will also slow down exporting of our plastic waste to foreign countries, like you saw our plastic being exported to Java. Another bullet point is you can replace your single-use items with reusables. And that's a more common one that we hear many nonprofits talk about. Use reusable utensils when you can, reusable water bottles, reusable shopping bags, cutting down on any item, single-use item that has a functional reusable replacement. Those are more steps you can take in your day-to-day life. If you want to get rid of Ziploc bags, for example, there are things you can do, such as get beeswax wrap that can be reused over and over and washed over and over again. There are a lot of new innovations that are coming out from a product standpoint that you can look at using on your on a home basis on a daily scale. And another bullet point I have is participate in a global brand audit. You hear of a lot of people participating in beach cleanups. This isn't something that we're going to clean our way out of, whether it's in the ocean or here on land, but this is something where we can collect data to let brands know how much of their items we're finding in the environment, and it can help us to hold them accountable to try to force them to make commitments and change in their business models and their way they operate. You can learn more about the brand audits by visiting the global movement of breakfreefromplastic.org. So I had to try to fit a lot in 20 minutes. I think I went a bit over, but you'll see on here I have it saying stay stoked. One of my biggest pieces of advice I can give for getting involved in this issue of plastic pollution and all the social and environmental justice issues surrounding it is find a way to have fun, get in where you fit in, and always find a way to stay stoked, because that energy is contagious and that positivity will keep this snowballing and keep the solutions building. So people and planet over profit. And thank you so much for your time. And I'm happy to answer any questions or comments if people have them.
Thank you so much, Doshi. We do have time for a few questions, and I also wanted to point out, it was in the chat, that some of the links that Doshi's been talking with us about are also in the eBlast email that people received in order to be able to attend the service today. So I know we have a lot of exploration to continue to do. Does anyone have questions for Doshi?
Hi, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was just curious how the young man from the Netherlands is doing with his
The ocean cleanup.
rid the oceans of the plastic in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you so much for asking about that, Jonathan, because that's been one of the major solutions that we see people talk about through social media, on the mass news. And he raised close to $30 million to be able to implement that project. The first thing I can say about that is, if we can't keep our parks, keep our gutters, keep our streets, keep the side of the interstate clean from plastic, there's no way we can keep the middle of the ocean clean from plastic. The ocean makes up majority of the surface of the planet, and it is such a dynamic environment out there that there's no way we can clean the oceans of plastic with something such as the ocean cleanup. We're talking the microplastics start as 5 millimeters in size and get to the point where we need to actually view them through looking at them through a microscope called nanoplastics. And when we try to separate, when you try to clean all that up, it's hard to separate those from the plankton, the planktonic creatures that we need to keep the oceanic food chain going and to produce oxygen for our cells. Now, a fact that isn't mainly talked about with the ocean cleanup is that most of the plastic in the ocean is actually floating in the ocean column and on the ocean floor. It's not just on the ocean surface. So although debris removal of fishing nets and buoys, that is important, there are other systems that are set up that are more feasible than the ocean cleanup project and are more successful than the ocean cleanup project. At the first run of the ocean cleanup project, the system broke in the middle of the ocean and they had to tow it back. So I feel as if it was marketed to people as a silver bullet solution. But with solutions to plastic pollution, there is no silver bullet solution. And if something sounds too good to be true, it most likely is. So it's actually been found to be more effective to set up things such as net collection systems for fishermen and fishers when they're done using the nets versus discarding them in the ocean. So that incentivizes a circular business model where fishers actually bring the net back in and get payment for it, and that plastic can be put into a mechanical recycling system. So there's systems that exist to create more of a circular economy versus trying to clean it up once it's entered the ocean. It's about stopping it in the first place. And on the Hawaiian Islands kind of act as a comb, taking a lot of that plastic out of the North Pacific Ocean. So the ocean will clean herself in due time. It's going to take many, 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 many years to do so. But this plastic eventually, from the surface at least, washes out onto shores around the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe we have time for one more quick question before we move on. Mike.
Yeah, this is more of a comment than a question. Months, or maybe it was years ago, we were forced to stop using the single-use bags at the supermarket.
Right.
Which I used to put my garbage in and throw it down the trash chute. But now I use these multi-use bags. They're 10 cents. But I also have to go and buy garbage bags, which are made out of thicker and heavier plastic than the ones I was using for trash bags. That doesn't make any sense. What can be done about that? I'm still throwing trash of plastic down the chute.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. And it's when you really, I'm really glad you brought that up actually, because like Pamela said earlier on, once we change our relationship with plastic, then we can really look at changing things with the systemic issues that we have. So you uncovering right there from your own personal actualization of like, well, I'm still using this thick plastic bag to throw away more trash. There's so many people that don't even acknowledge that and recognize that, right? When we look at actually those single-use flimsy plastic bags that you're referring to from the grocery store, those were some of the #1 items that were found in the environment through beach cleanups and research before the single-use plastic bag was implemented, bag ban on a state level was implemented. So that has been extremely effective in reducing plastic pollution from single-use bags. A lot of people were recycling those single-use plastic bags, which in fact ended up costing us taxpayers even more money because it's very expensive to fix the recycling technology and machinery that those bags were jamming up. So I've been to the material recovery facilities, some of them in Southern California, where items go to once they're put into a recycling bin. And those bags wrap around the machinery and jam up and break the system sometimes. And us as taxpayers, we're having to pay a lot of money to fix those. So in regards to what can you do to reduce those entering the waste stream, that's when we were looking at the zero waste models. We're really looking at like, all right, well, is there a compost facility in your area where you can compost your local, your household organics, your food scraps, so you don't need to put them into the trash bag? What are reusable systems to reduce your packaging that you're actually using at your home on your home scale? Is there a bakery where you can shop that you don't have to get your loaf of bread in a plastic wrapping, and so on and so forth? But I hear you. That's another issue that needs to be looked at. There are some compostable bags that are made from like potato starch that do break down in compost in certain managed conditions that people are starting to move towards with some trash bags. But I totally hear you, and I don't have an answer for on what to do about that, because that's another just part of the systemic issue we need to take a look at.
Well, again, Doshi, thank you so much for being with us today and for starting this discussion. And I know that there's more questions and discussion. I can see even in the chat, people are sharing some ideas.
Yeah, and I'm open if you all want to collect any more questions or overall thoughts. I'm happy to answer them when I can, and I have a plethora of resources and articles and videos and research papers for people to take a look at. And I do, the last thing I want to say is that solutions we're working on from a nonprofit standpoint, or solutions that we're trying to highlight, are very science and research driven. Nothing is just jumped to based on pure observation. There is data that backs up suggested legislation. So it really is something where we act as observers and researchers to try to bring the issue to the forefront.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Doshi, and I think we probably will be in touch with additional questions.
Hey, Pam, if I could make a suggestion, if people wanted to send in their questions, because I know there were more questions, maybe we can send all the questions to Doshi and he'd be kind enough to record them as an answer for us all at once, and I could post it as a addendum to this recording, and people can come back and visit it and get all those answers at one time.
That works, Don. Yeah, sure.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, now we'll move to our time of offertory. Every week as we gather during this time of the pandemic from within our phones, we are reminded that our caring and our generous community continues to be empowered by all of the innumerable gifts of those who join in covenant with us: service, trust, collaboration, patience, humor, compassion, curiosity, time, and our financial contribution, which allows the fellowship to meet its financial commitments. All of these are needed for this fellowship and for its continued good work in the world. And so the information on your screen provides two ways in which you can give, either electronically or by sending a check to the fellowship. And this information is also available in the email message which you received with the link to join this service this morning. It is for us as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. And we recognize that it is our responsibility to do both and to do both well. Now I would like to take a short time during the service to give people an opportunity to briefly share important events that have touched our lives in the past week. This is a fellowship where our joys can be amplified, and a caring community where by sharing our sorrows, they can be lessened. During this part of the service, we will pause the recording. And if you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share, please raise your hand and Dawn will allow you to unmute your mic. A loved part of our family, including the animals that are an important part of our lives, as well as the joys of celebrating the beginning of a marriage and celebrating a 50th anniversary of a marriage. Let us hold all of these joys and concerns, both those that have been spoken and those that are unspoken. Let us hold them in our hearts and minds in the coming week as we remember the strength that we truly do give to one another as we share our joys and as we lighten each other's burdens. So now, as our service draws to a close, we will share a few moments of silent meditation. Please settle yourself comfortably in your chair. You may want to close your eyes, place your feet on the floor beneath you, and feel connected to the ground. Let your hands rest quietly. Breathe deeply and allow yourself to relax. Follow your breath as you breathe in and breathe out. And then allow your mind to become quiet. Together, we will share a few moments of silent meditation. Now is the time for us to extinguish the chalice within our homes. So we will join together with Rachel, who's extinguishing the chalice in her home. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So now please enjoy our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth, and then I hope you all have an opportunity to stay with us for the virtual cafe following the service.